Hello, guys and gals, and this is a reading of an Odd Bestiary. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right or not. Maybe it's Bestiary. And it was designed and illustrated by Alan James Robinson, and the text is compiled and noted by Laurie Block. In the last episode, we went over the introduction, and it took about half an hour to go over the introduction. We're ready to actually start the actual book itself. As you can see, there's all kinds of entries here, and they are in alphabetical order. We are starting with the Armadillo. This was the last page of the introduction, and as you can see, it goes straight to an Odd Bestiary. And as you can see, there's nothing written on the backs of these pages. So that just makes it easier for me, basically. Anyways, Armadillo. They bring also from the firm land a bone, which is of the tail of a strange beast, which is covered over with small shells, even unto the feet, like as a horse is covered with armor, whereas he is called the Armadillo, that is to say, a beast armed. He is of the greatness of a young pig, and in the snout he is like unto him. So in other words, he has a pig's nose. He hath a great and long tail like a lizard. He abideth or dwelleth in the earth as a mole doeth, and they say that he is maintained thereby for abroad out of the earth. They see him not eat anything. He hath his venture only in the bone of his tail, which being made small into powder, and taking so much thereof as the head of a great pen, made in little balls, putting it in the ear, having grief therein, it taketh it away marvelously. And also, if there is any noise or sounding in the head, with any deafness, it worketh a great effect in many persons, and have used it, and they have been healed therewith. And the Lord Bishop certified me that he had seen it proved many times with great admiration, so that it is a thing to be marveled at, as having ventures in a place so hidden. It's from Joyfulness out of the Newfound World, 1596, by Nicholas Monardes. So apparently, if you grind up an armadillo's tail and put it in your ear, it takes away ear pain. Tinnitus, maybe? And then there is another image of the armadillo, except he's all rolled up in a ball. On the brink of a precipice, he escapes the huntsman by rolling himself up and falling down like a ball, without injury or prejudice to his scales, by Comte de Buffon. Okay. And next we have the Basilisk. The Basilisk is actually based off of an actual lizard, I'm just saying. This is just basically one of the incarnations, or the medieval look of one. Basilisk. This is another name of renown. The worthy Aldrovandus has favored us with a veritable engraving of the royal reptile, with 8 feet, a long and hooked beak, and a crown upon its head. It is said to have the power of striking its victim dead at a glance, and to chase all other animals from its regal residence, by the terrific tones of its voice. To add to its marvelous reputation, it proceeded from the egg, forsooth, of a cock, otherwise a rooster, or a chicken. Of course, there is no connection between this fabled animal and the saurian we are about to describe than between the dragon of ancient fable and the little winged reptile of Java. Naturalists, however, make sure it's naturalists and not naturists, have, however, as in the former case, chosen to avail themselves of a well-known name and to apply it to a real animal, which has been previously unknown. The basilisk, then, is an iguana with a tail flattened sideways, a fin-like crest running down the middle of its back, and a sort of elevated hood at the back of its head. The single species known as B. mitratus is of a bluish tint, attains a large size, inhabits South America, and feeds on fruit. Little is known of its habits, but from its form it is probably more or less aquatic. An Introduction to Zoology, 1844, by Philip Henry Goss. I'm going to say that the name is Goss, because it probably is. And there is a more realistic picture of it. When crossing streams and ponds, it seems to walk on water, and some call it the Jesus lizard. That is by Anonymous, and I was aware of that factoid. We are to C, and oddly enough, C is actually the giraffe. Go figure. But this animal is called the Camel Leopard, a beast of wonderful and rare nature, as big as a camel, whose color was spotted, and upon its skin there was like scales. His latter part was very low and lion-like, but his shoulders, 4 feet, and breast were far beyond the proportion of his other members. His neck was slender, as though the rest of his body was great, yet was his throat very small. His head was a fashion like a camel's head, but it was not past twice so big as a Libyan ostrich's head, wherein he rolls his eyes, terrible, as if there had been in them some red leader. His gait was never changed, but went not like no beast either of the earth or water, but he moved his legs on either side both at once, so that he moved his right legs and left legs not in order, nor one after the other, but all his half body. With either of them, he was so tame and gentle to be dealt with all by use, that he would be ruled of his keeper with a little cord, and rather follow his will. Then the line he was tied in, as soon as the beast was brought in sight, all the people were afraid, and suddenly called it of the fashion and principal parts of his body Camelopardalis, and it made a great array of all the place about which the men stood. That is from an Ethiopian history, 1587, by Heliodorus, something like that. I'm terrible with names. And there is the giraffe, the admirablest and fairest beast that I ever saw, by Sanderson. We are to D, which is the Dodo Bird. I've never actually seen one of these because they are technically extinct now. But anyways, let's read about the Dodo Bird. Dodo Bird, first here in the Isle of Mauritius, or Mauritius. I believe it's pronounced Mauritius. And here only, and in Daguerreois, is generated the dodo, which for shape and rareness may antagonize the phoenix of Arabia. Her body is round and fat. Few weigh less than 50 pounds. Are reputed of more for wonder than food. Greasy stomachs may seek after them, but to the delicate they are offensive and of no nourishment. Her visage darts forth melancholy, as sensible to nature's injury, in framing so great a body, to be guided with complemental wings so small and impotent that they serve only to prove her bird. The half of her head is naked, seemingly covered with a fine veil. Her bill is crooked, downwards. In midst of a pale yellow tincture, her eyes are small and like to diamonds, round and rolling. Her clothing downy feathers, her train, three small plumes, short and improportionable. Her legs, let me find the page again. This book does not want to stay open. Her legs suiting to her body, her pounces sharp, her appetite strong and greedy. Stones and iron are digested, which description will better be conceived in her representation. This is from a relation of some years travail by Begun Anno 1626 by Sir Thomas Herbert. Let's have another picture. Let's have another look at this Dodo Bird. If I can get the page to turn. There. And there it is. A dodo or dronte doth equal a swan in highness by Randall Holm. I guess that is the quotation by said person. We are to elephant. Elephant. The elephant is the biggest of all four-footed beasts. His four forelegs are longer than his hinder. He hath ankles in the lower part of his hinder legs, and 5 toes on his feet, undivided. His snout or trunk is so long, and in such form that it is to him in the stead of a hand. For he neither eateth nor drinketh, but by bringing his trunk to his mouth. Therewith he helpeth by his maester or keeper. Therewith he overthroweth trees, or of all beasts they are most gentle and tractable. For by many sundry ways they are taught and do understand, insomuch that they learn to do honor to the king, and are of quick sense and sharpness of wit. They have continual war against dragons, which desire their blood because it is very cold, and therefore the dragon, lying await as the elephant passeth by, windeth his tail, being of exceeding length, about the hinder legs of the elephant, and so staying him, thrusting his head into his trunk, and exhausteth his breath, or else biteth him in the ear, unto which he cannot reach with his trunk. And when the elephant fainteth, he falleth down on the serpent, being now full of blood, and with the poise weight of his body breaketh him, so that his own blood with the blood of the elephant runneth out of him, mingling together, which being cooled is congealed into the substance which the apothecaries call sanguis draconis. I had no idea. Okay. The History of Travel in the West and East Indies in 1577 by Richard Eden. Okay, so I had no idea that there was dragon lore associated with elephants. That's cool. When a male hath once seasoned the female, he never after toucheth her. And that is also by Richard Eden. That's interesting, and that is true. They are like that. Flying fish. The manner of hunting and hawking representeth that which we reasonable creatures use, saying only in the disposing of the game. For by our industry and ability, the hound and hawk is brought to that obedience, that whatsoever they seize is for their master. But he is but here it is otherwise, for the game is for him that seizeth it. The dolphins and bonitos are the hounds, and the alcatraces, or the albatrosses, and the hawks, and the flying fish, the game, whose wonderful making magnificeth the Creator, who for their safety and help hath given them extraordinary manner of fins, which serve instead of wings, like those of the bat, or rear mouse, rear mouse, of such a delicate skin, interlaced with small bones so curiously as may well cause admiration in the beholder. They are like unto pilchards in color and making, saving that they are somewhat rounder and bigger. They fly best with a side wind, but longer than their wings are wet. They cannot sustain the weight of their bodies, and so the greatest flight hath not been above a quarter of a mile. They commonly go in schools. I believe that's supposed to be schools. The dolphins and bonitos do continue hunt after them, and the alcatraces, or albatrosses, lie soaring in the air to see when they spring or take their flight. And ordinarily he that escapeth the mouth of the dolphin or bonitos, helping himself by his wings, falleth prisoner into the hands of the albatrosses, and helpeth to fill his gorge. The Observations from 1622 by Sir Richard Hawkins. Let's take a better look at these flying fish. That's amazing right there. Their fly, instead of flying, do skip from place to place like grasshoppers. Sir Francis Drake. So they're like mud skippers, I guess. We are to Griffin. Not Peter Griffin, but to Griffin. Griffin, from the land men shall go to, in the land of... Okay, this is really fanciful. I really like this description. It makes me laugh because it's kind of silly. But anyways, here we go. Griffin, from this land men shall go to the land of Bactry, where are many wicked and cruel men. In this land are trees that bear wool, as it were sheep, of which they make cloth. In this land the Hippopotames, or hippopotami, that dwell sometimes on land and sometimes on water, and are half men and half horse. That would be more like a centaur, I would imagine. But anyway, and feed on men when they can get them. In this land are many griffins, more than in other places, and some say that they have the body before as an eagle and behind as a lion. And it is true, for they are made so. But the griffin hath a body bigger than 8 lions, and stronger than 100 eagles. For certain he will bear to his nest, flying, a horse and a man upon his back, or 2 oxen yoked together as they go to plow. For he hath long nails on his feet, as great as horns of oxen, and of those they make cups where they drink with, where they make cups there to drink with, and of his ribs they do make bows to shoot with. From The Voyage and Travels, 1722, by John Mandeville. Let's take another look at this griffin, shall we? And there it is, the griffin. It says, Griffins in nature, that is a mixed and dubious animal, in forepart resembling an eagle, and behind the shape of a lion, with erect ears, 4 feet, and a long tail, by Sir Thomas Browne. I think we have time for a few more of these. And speaking of hippos, we have the hippopotamus. Hippopotamus. In this country are sundry other rivers, also, which fetch their original out of the lake of Aqualunda, this principle whereof are Kwanzaa, which divideth the kingdom of Conga from that of Angola, and the river Lelunda, which breedeth crocodiles, and water horses, which the Greeks call hippopotami, of which creatures the Isle of Horses in the mouth of the river Zaire take domination. The hippopotamus or water horse is somewhat tawny and the color of a lion. In the night he comes on land to feed upon the grasses, and keepeth in the water all the daytime. The Africans tame and manage some of these horses, and they prove exceedingly swift. But a man must beware how he pass over deep rivers with them, for they will suddenly dive under water. This creature is commonly found in the rivers of Niger and Nilus. In shape it resembleth an horse, and in stature the arse, as in the donkey. But it is altogether destitute of hair. It liveth both in the water and upon the land, and swimmeth to the shore in the night season. Barks and boats laden with wares, and sailing down the river of Niger, are greatly endangered by this sea horse, for oftentimes he overwhelmeth and sink them. A Geographical History of Africa, 1600, by John Leo. Let's take a closer look at this hippopotamus. Wow. Okay. The ivory of the hippopotamus is better than that of elephants, being whiter, harder, and never loses its color. By Duarte Barbosa. I wonder if that's in relation to Captain Barbosa in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And now we're to Ibex. I do like Ibexes. Ibexes are really cool. Yeah. The people, whoever actually did the art in this book, really likes to do the back shots of animals, which is pretty cool. Ibex. First, these are bred in the Alps and are of an admirable celebrity, though their heads be loaded with such horns as no other beast of their stature beareth. Their horns reach to their buttocks or hips. They are knotty. That's Knotty, not Naughty, even though they probably are kind of naughty at times. They are knotty and sharp, and as the increase in age, so do their horns in strongness and other qualities until they be 20 years old. When this beast feeleth infallible tokens of her death, and perceiveth that her end be some wound or course of nature approacheth, and is at hand, it is reported by the hunters that she ascendeth to the top of some mountain or high rock, and there fasteneth one of her horns in the same steep place, going round continually and never standing still, until she had worn that horn asunder, whereas she stayeth herself, and so at length, at the instant or point of death, breaking her horn, falleth down and perishing. And because they die among the rocks, it falleth out seldom, and their bodies are found. But many times, when the snow falleth from the mountains in great and huge masses, it meeteth with a living ibex and other wild beasts, and so oppressing them, driveth them down to the foot of the hills or mountains, as it doth trees and small houses, which were built upon the sides of them. The History of Four-Footed Beasts and Serpents, in 1658, by Edward Topsell. And we have a picture of an ibex here. Right there. I think that's a male one, though. Isidorus saith that ibexes are quasi-avices, like fowls of the air. They inhabit the tops of drifts, rocks, and mountains, far from the view and sight of men. That's also by Edward Topsell. We have time for one more, I believe. Let's look up the Jerboa. I'm aware of Jerboa. There was a Jerboa in that one movie called The Star. That was pretty cool. Jerboa. We saw also near Turkey, that's Turkey, a kind of field mice, which in the Arabic language are called Jerboa. They are about the bigness of a squirrel and somewhat like the creature of that kind, which is so common in Europe, save that their hair is blacker, their heads like those of rats. They have long ears and 4 feet short and hind feet long, whence it comes that they cannot run, but when they get in some place and in the plain, they only creep unless it be when they leap, for then they spring 5 or 6 feet high from the ground, having their tails laid over their backs, and whereas their tails are long and without any hair like those of ordinary mice, but not so big, they are somewhat like the lion's rampant, like the lion's rampant in the coat of arms, and made a pretty kind of sport, especially when many of them leaped at the same time, as we said before. They are abundant. There are abundance of them about Babylon and in Arabia, where the inhabitants eat them. Some will leave the field and go into people's houses, which if they do, the master of the house hath need have a care of his money, lest they light upon it. So apparently they are like mice. They invade people's houses, and sometimes they steal money. Interesting. The Voyages and Travels of the Ambassadors from 1662 by Adam O'Learius. And then there is another Jerboa. Jerboa. Actually, this is Jerboa. A composition of squirrel, a hare, a rat, and a monkey with altogether look very like a bird. By Henry Walpole. Okay. Anyways, we pick this up. We're going to read about what a kangaroo looks like. We're going to go down under. Read about kangaroos and some such. Oh, that's right. I need to find a bookmark real quick. Anyways, I'm going to leave this episode here. We made it all the way from A to K, so that means that we still have a little ways to go. But, okay, I think I can remember that. Let me just, I'll put my planner in here for now. I'm going to need it later, but, oops. Okay, there we go. Anyways, we've been reading from an Odd Bestiary, and it was designed and illustrated by Alan James Robinson, and text was compiled and noted by Laurie Block. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe, ring the bell so you know when I upload, and if you want to support me in any way, all that information will be in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.